they disappear, and then suddenly there they are again, a text late at night, a casual "Hey, how have you been?" as if nothing ever happened, and you find yourself wondering why. Why do they come back after silence, after you finally started to breathe again without them? The truth is, it's not always about love reborn. Sometimes it's about what your absence forced them to see. When you stop chasing, when you pull your energy back, something shifts. They feel the difference even if they don't admit it. That steady attention, those good morning texts, that quiet loyalty they got used to, gone, and it's in that empty space that they realize how much they relied on your presence to feel wanted, validated, or powerful. It's not until you're gone that they see how much you really gave. No contact isn't magic, but it is clarity. It gives you space to see them more clearly, and it forces them to see what life looks like without you. They might remember your laugh, your softness, the way you made them feel safe, the calm you brought into their restless world. They remember because they can no longer reach for it whenever they want. They come back because your absence speaks a language louder than words, because silence shows them what your presence covered up, that they were receiving more love, patience, and warmth than they ever gave back. And sometimes they come back not because they've changed, but because they miss the version of themselves they got to be when you were near. But the question isn't why they return, the real question is what you do when they do. Do you open the door wide again out of habit, or do you pause and remember how it felt when you were the only one trying? Do you let history repeat, or do you hold onto the strength you found in the quiet? They come back because something about you was real, rare, and deeply felt. But moving forward isn't about their realization, it's about yours. You finally see that love isn't proven by someone's return. It's proven by what they do once they're back, and by what you choose to accept. Because your worth was never measured by who comes back, but by what you decide you'll never settle for again. Absence creates clarity in a way words rarely can. When they're always texting first, forgiving quickly, making plans, and keeping the connection alive, it becomes easy for the other person to forget what it would feel like without you. Your presence becomes part of the background, like a song playing so softly they stop noticing the melody. But the moment you step back, the silence becomes deafening. And in that silence, they're forced to face the reality of what they had, what they risked, and what they might truly lose. When you go quiet, it's not about playing games or punishing someone. It's about creating space for the truth to rise to the surface. Words can be argued with, silence cannot. Constant explanations and reassurances blur lines, but distance draws them clearly. In your absence, they finally have to look at the empty space where your laughter, care, and attention used to be. That emptiness holds up a mirror they can't avoid. Clarity begins when your daily presence, the check-ins, the soft encouragement, the quiet support they may have overlooked disappears. Suddenly, there's a void where your words used to comfort them on hard days, where your presence made ordinary moments warmer, where your patience helped them feel understood. They may not have realized how deeply they leaned on those things until they're gone. And what used to feel like something small becomes something they can't stop thinking about. Absence also brings clarity to you. While they face the loss, you step back into your own space and begin to see what you've been carrying. You notice the ways you kept the connection alive almost single-handedly, the times you excused patterns that hurt you, the pieces of yourself you silenced to keep peace. With distance, the rose-colored lens starts to fade, and the truth comes into focus. Love shouldn't feel like a one-sided effort, and it shouldn't cost your self-respect to keep it alive. Clarity doesn't always mean they suddenly realize they were wrong and come back ready to do better. Sometimes it means you see, maybe for the first time, that they were never ready to give what you hoped they would. You recognize the difference between someone missing you because they care and someone missing you because they miss the comfort your presence provided. That difference matters. Absence makes it impossible to keep lying to yourself about what was really happening. For them, absence is like turning off the autopilot. When you were always available, it was easy to keep moving without reflection. But when you stop answering every message, stop saying yes every time, and stop trying to fix everything, they have no choice but to confront the quiet. In that quiet, they hear the truth. They were receiving something rare, something they didn't fully appreciate, something they might not find again. And that thought can shake them in a way that even your most honest words couldn't. For you, clarity comes from the calm that follows the hurt. At first, the silence feels heavy. Every moment without them feels wrong. Every memory feels sharp. But slowly, that silence becomes space to breathe, to think, and to remember who you were before you tried so hard to hold on to them. You see what you truly want and need, and you begin to question whether they ever truly offered it. Absence is powerful because it removes the noise of hope and habit. It strips away the distractions, the excuses, the moments that made you doubt your instincts. It forces honesty to the surface, whether you're ready for it or not. And that honesty, as painful as it can be, is what sets you free. It's never easy to step back. The fear of losing them, of pushing them away for good, can feel overwhelming. But sometimes losing them isn't the worst thing that can happen. Losing yourself is, and absence protects you from that. It protects your heart from the exhaustion of overgiving, and it protects your future from being tied to someone who might never fully see you. In the end, absence creates clarity for both sides. For them, it reveals what your presence truly meant. For you, it reveals whether their absence leaves a space that should be filled again, or whether it shows you that space was only filled by your effort alone. And through that clarity, you find your answer, not in what they do next, but in what the silence teaches you about what you truly deserve. They remember what they took for granted, often only when it's gone. While you were there, loving openly, forgiving quickly, and showing up without being asked, it was easy for them to mistake your presence as something permanent. Your kindness, your patience, the way you listened to them without judgment, all of it blended into the background of their everyday life. It became something they relied on, even if they never fully acknowledged it. And because it was always there, it never seemed like it could disappear. People often fail to realize how deeply they've leaned on someone until that person steps back. While you were there, you were the steady comfort in the chaos, the safe space they could turn to after a hard day, the warmth that softened their edges. They may not have said it out loud, perhaps they didn't even fully understand it themselves, but part of them settled into the security of knowing you'd always answer the call, always make time, always forgive the thoughtless words and the late replies. It's human nature to overlook what feels guaranteed, but when you finally choose silence over explanation, distance over chasing, your absence makes them see what your presence hid so well. They remember the small things first, your laugh that made heavy days lighter, your words that brought comfort when everything else felt uncertain, the softness in your voice when they shared something vulnerable. The little rituals you created together, morning messages, inside jokes, quiet moments that made them feel understood. In those quiet hours when they find themselves reaching for the phone, they realize there's no one on the other side who knows them like you did. It's not just the grand gestures they miss. It's the consistency, the emotional safety, the subtle way your presence made life feel a bit less lonely. They remember how your patience held space for their flaws, how your loyalty never wavered even when theirs did, how your love was something they could lean on without asking, and in that remembering, they start to feel the weight of what they took for granted. They also begin to see the parts of themselves they liked most when they were with you, the softer side they rarely show, the confidence they felt when your belief in them was stronger than their own self-doubt, the quiet courage they drew from knowing someone truly had their back. You brought out those parts not by force, but by loving them in a way that felt safe. When that love is gone, the person they see in the mirror feels less whole. Regret often comes wrapped in memory. They replay moments when they brushed off your feelings, times when they were too distracted, too careless, or too sure you'd never leave. They remember the times they could have shown up and didn't, the apologies they never said, and the simple ways they could have made you feel seen but chose not to. It's in that remembering that they finally feel the gap your absence creates. What they miss most isn't always the relationship itself, but the version of themselves they could be because you were there. The softer words they spoke because you listened, the laughter that came easier because you understood them, the hope that grew quietly in them because you believed in a future together. Your presence added something to their life that felt natural at the time, but now feels impossible to recreate without you. But while they remember what they took for granted, you remember too, and that memory is powerful. You remember the times you stayed silent to keep the peace, the moments you forgave too quickly, the times you showed up for them at the cost of abandoning yourself. And with distance, those memories shift from pain into clarity. You start to see that loving someone shouldn't mean being invisible, that being patient shouldn't mean accepting neglect, and that being loyal shouldn't mean carrying the whole weight of the relationship alone. In the end, memory is the most honest mirror. They remember what they lost, you remember what you gave, and while their regret may come too late to fix what was broken, your own reflection guides you towards something better. Because you were never the problem. You were the gift that made them feel more alive, more understood, and less alone, a gift they only recognized fully once it was gone. And in that remembering, both sides learn a truth that words alone could never teach. Love should never be something realized only in its absence, and they often return out of missing comfort, not out of change. It's something we rarely want to admit to ourselves because the heart clings to hope. When that familiar name appears on your phone after silence, it's tempting to believe it means they've finally understood your worth, that they've transformed, that the time apart sparked real growth. But more often than not, what draws them back isn't a revelation or a newfound respect, it's the sudden emptiness they feel without you there to soothe them. When you were in their life, your presence was a quiet cushion against loneliness and doubt. You listened when no one else had the patience, believed in them when they barely believed in themselves, and offered understanding without needing them to ask. Even if they rarely said it out loud, you became their refuge. Your words softened the world's sharp edges. Your laughter reminded them of lighter days, and your kindness gave them permission to breathe a little easier. But when you stop reaching out, when the late night texts go unanswered, when you no longer check if they've eaten, if they're okay, or if they made it home safely, that comfort vanishes, and the absence of it feels heavier than they ever expected. It isn't necessarily your love they come chasing after. It's the space your love filled in their life. The emptiness left behind becomes louder than their pride, and missing the way you made them feel becomes impossible to ignore. Yet missing comfort is not the same as missing you, the whole complex person you are. Missing comfort is about them, their loneliness, their insecurity, their need to feel adored. Missing you truly would mean recognizing how they hurt you, understanding what they failed to give, and returning with humility and a desire to do better, but many times that's not what drives them back. They miss the feeling of being loved unconditionally without having to change. They miss the reassurance you provided, the belief you had in them, the part of themselves that felt bigger and braver because of your presence. If they haven't truly grown, their return often carries the same patterns wrapped in new words. Apologies may sound sweeter, promises more convincing, and for a while, it might seem like things could be different. But comfort isn't transformation. Feeling the loss of your warmth doesn't teach them how to offer warmth in return. Feeling lonely without you doesn't show them how to love you better. The fear of being without you isn't the same as the courage it takes to truly step up and love you the way you deserve. What makes this so complicated is that your heart remembers the comfort too. You remember the good days, the laughter, the closeness, the softness that existed even in an unbalanced love. So when they come back, part of you aches to believe this time it's real. But what matters isn't just whether they miss you, but whether they've understood why they lost you in the first place, and whether they've actually done the work to become someone who wouldn't let it happen again. True change shows itself quietly. It's not in dramatic confessions or grand gestures. It's in consistent actions, choosing honesty over silence, patience over frustration, effort over excuses. It's seen in how they handle conflict, how they show care without being reminded, and how they honor your boundaries instead of testing them. If they return simply because they're lonely or because the world feels colder without your love, those changes rarely appear. Instead, the cycle repeats: closeness, comfort, complacency, and then distance again. Recognizing this doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. It protects your heart from confusing someone's need for comfort with their readiness to truly love you. Because you are more than the warmth you offer, more than the softness you bring, and more than a safe harbor for someone afraid of being alone. Love, real love, requires more than missing what you provided. It requires stepping up, showing up, and becoming the person your heart deserves. So when they return, ask yourself, do they miss you, or do they miss what you made them feel? Are they driven by change or by comfort? And remember that you don't owe anyone your peace just because they finally noticed the silence you left behind. Wanting you back isn't the same as being ready to hold you gently and love you fully. And your heart deserves more than being someone's soft place to land when the world feels cold. It deserves someone who stays, not because they need your comfort, but because they choose your soul, and have grown enough to truly cherish it. Silence speaks louder than words because it leaves nothing for someone to argue with, dismiss, or deflect. Words, no matter how carefully chosen, can be twisted, interrupted, or brushed aside. They can trigger defensiveness or denial, starting yet another cycle of explanations and justifications that goes nowhere. But silence stands still and undeniable. It becomes a mirror, reflecting the truth someone may have refused to see, and it echoes longer than anything spoken out loud. When you choose silence after being treated like an option, it sends a message more powerful than 1,000 arguments ever could. It says, I've stopped trying to convince you of my worth because I finally see it myself. It's not about punishment. It's about choosing your own peace over a conversation that's only ever led to disappointment. In the quiet, the other person is left alone with their own thoughts, without your words to distract or soothe them. And it's there, in that emptiness, that reality has room to settle in. The comfort of your constant presence, the reassuring texts, the gentle reminders, the patient listening, disappears. They feel the change even if they pretend not to. What used to be taken for granted becomes something that feels unsettlingly absent. And without the noise of your voice, your explanations, your reassurances, they're left only with what's real, their choices, and the consequences of them. Silence also frees you. It's a declaration that you no longer wish to spend your energy trying to explain what should have been clear all along. You stop begging for someone to see your value or fighting to change their mind. And in that stillness, you often discover something surprising: peace. Where once there was anxiety, frustration, and hurt, there is now space to breathe, to heal, and to remember who you were before you started arguing for your place in someone's life. It's in the silence that you often hear your own truth more clearly, too. You notice how heavy it was to keep speaking, to keep hoping your words might finally break through. You see the ways you softened your voice, tempered your needs, or swallowed your pain just to keep the connection alive. Silence exposes the cost of trying so hard to be understood by someone who wasn't ready or willing to listen, and once you feel the relief of not having to do that anymore, it becomes easier to let go. For the one who let you go, silence is uncomfortable. They might expect anger, tears, or pleading, but instead they are met with nothing. That absence often says more than any confrontation ever could. It says you're no longer playing the role they assigned you, the one who keeps the door open, no matter how many times they walk out. It challenges them to face what life feels like without your steady presence, and sometimes that's what finally forces them to see what they had. Yet the power of silence isn't about getting them back or making them feel regret. It's about finding clarity for yourself, without the noise of their mixed signals or your own efforts to keep the peace. You see things as they really were. You see whether they step forward on their own, without prompting, without your reminders of what you deserve. And if they don't, you see that too, and you accept it, not as a loss of your value, but as proof of theirs. Silence also protects your dignity. There's strength in choosing not to argue, not to justify your needs, and not to plead for respect that should come freely. Instead of shouting to be heard, you quietly step back, and in doing so, you communicate that your self-respect matters more than their validation. You show them and yourself that your love isn't desperate, it's intentional. And if it's not returned with the same intention, you're willing to let go. Ultimately, silence teaches what words can't. That love isn't proven by how loudly you fight to keep it, but by how calmly you're willing to release what isn't right. It shows that sometimes the most powerful statement is no statement at all, just the quiet certainty that your worth doesn't need to be argued for. In that space, the truth finds its voice. For them, it might sound like regret. For you, it often sounds like peace. And for both, it speaks a truth that words failed to deliver, that what's real, what's respectful, and what's meant to stay doesn't need convincing. It recognizes its value, and it chooses to stay without needing to be reminded. And that message, delivered in silence, is louder than anything else you could ever say. The real question is your response, because it isn't about why they come back, but about what you do when they do. They might come back for many reasons: loneliness, guilt, nostalgia, or the memory of the comfort your love gave them. They might return because they suddenly notice the emptiness where your presence used to live. But none of those reasons matter as much as what you decide when faced with their return. Your answer defines the next chapter, not their reappearance at your door. It's tempting to let hope answer first. Hope whispers that maybe this time is different, that maybe the silence really did teach them what words never could. You remember the soft moments, the closeness that felt like home, and the way you used to laugh together. Hope points to these memories and says, "See, they came back. Doesn't that mean something?" And yes, it does mean something, but not always what you wish it did. The heart wants to believe that love finally won. That your patience, your absence, and your silence sparked a change so real it will last. But the heart isn't always wise on its own. That's where your response matters most. It isn't about anger or revenge, it's about clarity. Before you open the door again, ask yourself what they're really bringing this time. Is it growth, responsibility, and a willingness to love you the way you deserve? Or is it the same person in different words, hoping to step back into your warmth without offering anything new in return? Your response must come from what you've learned during the silence, not from the ache that misses them. You've learned that loving someone doesn't mean carrying the whole relationship on your shoulders. You've learned that missing someone doesn't make them right for you. And you've learned that someone returning isn't always a sign of transformation. Sometimes it's just a sign that they miss what you gave them. The difference matters because your peace, your heart, and your future depend on it. When they come back, you'll see them more clearly than before. You'll notice if they've taken time to reflect or if they're simply uncomfortable with loneliness. You'll see if they come with apologies backed by changed behavior or only with sweet words meant to ease their own guilt. And in those moments, you'll face the choice. Do you let history repeat, or do you hold out for something real? Real love isn't afraid of questions like, what changed? What did you learn? Why now? Someone who has grown will not run from those questions. They'll welcome them. They'll offer honesty instead of defensiveness, vulnerability instead of charm, and effort instead of promises. Your response must look beyond what they say to what they do, and what they're willing to keep doing when the first relief of reconciliation fades. It's not cold or bitter to demand evidence of change. It's love turned inward, love for yourself, love for the life you're building, love for the kind of relationship you truly want. Your response isn't about punishing them, it's about protecting your heart. It's about understanding that being wanted isn't the same as being cherished, and that someone missing you isn't the same as someone valuing you. The real question isn't whether they come back, it's whether you accept them back without seeing what has changed. It's about whether you let the fear of being alone overpower the truth you found in silence. And it's about whether you choose yourself, even when your heart still beats faster at the sound of their name. Your response can rewrite the story, not by forcing a happy ending, but by showing that you've grown too. You're no longer the person who is willing to lose herself to keep someone else. You've learned that love doesn't demand self-abandonment, and that your worth isn't proven by how quickly you forgive or how tightly you hold on. Your worth is proven by what you demand from love: honesty, respect, and consistency. In the end, the power was never in their leaving or their return. It was always in your hands, in your choice to decide what love should look like in your life and what you will no longer accept. The real question isn't about them at all. It's about you, and the answer is in the quiet strength you found when they were gone. The part of you that learned to stand alone, the part that knows you're worthy of more, and the part that refuses to settle for anything less. Your worth isn't proven by their return. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, because the heart naturally longs for validation, especially from the very person who once made you feel unseen. When they come back, whether with apologies, nostalgia, or sweet words about missing you, it can feel like proof that you mattered all along. It feels like a quiet confirmation that your love was real, that your absence left a mark, that you weren't imagining your importance in their life. But the truth is deeper and sometimes harder. Your worth existed before they returned, and it remains even if they never had. Their decision to come back may have nothing to do with finally seeing your value. It could come from loneliness, guilt, or even the realization that no one else offered what you did. While it might look like recognition of your worth, It's often only recognition of what they lost, not who you truly are. Your worth isn't defined by their timing, their realization, or their regret. It's not proven by the fact that someone misses your presence when it's gone. Real worth lives outside someone else's awareness of it. It isn't conditional, doesn't need approval, and isn't measured by who stays or who leaves. You are worthy because of your capacity to love deeply, your kindness even in pain, your courage to hope after disappointment, and your willingness to show up fully. Those qualities aren't less valuable just because they went unseen or unappreciated. Their blindness never made your heart less generous or your love less genuine. It can feel comforting to believe that someone coming back finally proves what you always hoped, that you were enough. But true healing asks you to find peace whether they come back or not. It asks you to look in the mirror and see value that is independent of their choices. Because when your self-worth depends on their return, your power still belongs to them. And love, real love for yourself and from another, can't grow in a place where someone else holds that power. Your worth shows up in what you demand for yourself moving forward, in the boundaries you set, in the love you choose to accept, in the silence you hold rather than chasing validation. It's seen in your ability to say, "I know what I offer, and I won't settle for less." It's not about punishing them for leaving. It's about protecting the parts of you that learn to stand strong in their absence. Sometimes they don't come back, and that can feel like proof that you truly weren't enough. But their silence isn't a verdict on your value. It's only a reflection of where they are, of what they can give, of what they're ready or not ready to face. Your worth doesn't shrink in their absence. It remains steady, waiting for you to see it clearly, even when they never do. And if they do come back, it's not the return itself that matters. What matters is whether they now love you in a way that honors your worth, sees your heart, and matches the effort you've always offered. Your worth is proven not by their reappearance, but by your willingness to ask the harder questions. Has anything changed? Are they ready to give, not just take? Are they willing to love, not just miss? Sometimes, love returns only to reveal it still isn't love, its habit, its comfort, its guilt. Your worth asks you to look beyond words and see the reality of what's offered. And if what they bring back isn't enough, your worth empowers you to say no, to choose a future where you are fully seen, even if that means walking alone for a while longer. In the end, your worth is constant. It isn't a gift they give you when they choose to come back. It's a truth that lives within you, proven every day by your kindness, your strength, your honesty, and your hope. The greatest peace comes when you see that clearly, when their return becomes a choice you consider rather than the validation you need. Your heart deserves to be loved because of what it is, not because its absence made someone finally notice the emptiness it left behind. You were enough all along, and the real proof of your worth is not that they come back, but that you finally see you never needed them to know it. It isn't about why they come back, what they say, or what they finally realize after your absence. It's about what you see now that you couldn't see before. You discover that your worth was never something for them to grant or confirm. It was always yours to claim. Their regret might echo in your silence, but it doesn't define you. The real power lies in what you choose next, to stand firm in the love you found for yourself, to refuse to shrink just to be chosen, and to remember that missing you isn't the same as being ready to love you right. Because the truest proof of your worth isn't found in their return, but in your courage to hold out for the love that meets you where you are, honors all you bring, and never makes you question if you're enough. And that choice to value yourself first is the quiet strength that changes everything.